There may come a time when you find your horse has acquired a habit that is unpleasant, maybe unsafe, and you have to deal with it. And maybe you realize that you didn't perceive that habit developing right away. Maybe it's walking on top of you. Maybe it's pulling away from you. Maybe it's dragging you around on the end of the lead rope, and it came on slowly until you realize it's hit a kind of critical mass. And you realize that you're going to have to take some fairly direct disciplinary type action to sort this out. So you've got choices to make as to how you deal with it. If it's pretty ingrained, you have to recognize the fact that your horse is not going to give that habit up without some objection. And unless you're prepared to deal with that objection and quash it, you probably ought not to undertake the job. What you can't do is what I see all too many people do, and that is to hope that somehow magically this is going to spontaneously resolve on its own. Then maybe he'll just grow out of it or get over it. Chances are it'll stay the same or more likely get worse. The problem is when you apply the pressure needed to end that behavior that he's become pretty dedicated to, his resistance is likely to be pretty dedicated and pretty definite as well. He will have reached a point where he believes he has a right to behave in that fashion. So you have to say to yourself, do I want to confront this horse, deal with this, even if it gets ugly? Or do I maybe want to turn to someone else with more experience or more qualifications to deal with it instead? Certainly, that is a very reasonable option. But what you don't do, and this is what this video is about, you don't bluff. You don't pretend that you're going to sort this out and hope your horse buys it. They probably won't. And if they call your bluff, it's not going to be good. So to illustrate that, while I usually like to do something with a horse, I really don't have a horse that is giving me that kind of problem that I have to get into that way, which is really gratifying. And it's a rainy day, and we're making these videos inside. So I thought I'd tell you a story. It's not about horses, but it involves a bully and a coonskin hat and a kid and a rubber knife. And the theme is never pull a rubber knife on your horse. So I think in a previous video that involved a bully and a rubber knife and no rubber knife in that video, just an alligator. You met Carl with a K, the bully in our neighborhood when I still lived in town as a young kid, probably up to about the age of 7 or 8. Well, Carl was in fact the prototypical bully. He victimized all the younger, smaller kids. And yet, around adults, butter wouldn't melt in his mouth. They thought he was a fine young man, and he was anything but. So this period of time, the craze, a fad, a craze, just absolute obsession was Davy Crockett. And every kid that had any caring parent got a coonskin hat, the furrier the better with the tail on, got a fake buckskin suit, and with a bit of luck, they got a Davy Crockett plastic rifle and a Davy Crockett rubber knife. And I had all those trappings. And when I looked at the rubber knife and I thought about Carl, I had a little inspiration. So the next time I encountered Carl, he suggested that it might be about time he pulled that coonskin cap off my head and ripped the tail off of it. And I couldn't have that. But I thought, that knife is so realistic. I can back that sucker off with it. So out comes the plastic knife, and I brandish it under his looming face, and for just a moment, I see a flicker of doubt in his eyes. Just for a moment, he thinks he may have his bully throat cut by some younger, smaller Davy Crockett wannabe with a bloodthirsty side. But then, as tended to happen, that rubber knife wasn't as rigid as its real counterpart. And the tip of it kind of went like this. And a light went on in Carl's eyes, and he was back to himself. And he said, "You little turd, you pulled a rubber knife on me." And he beat the shit out of me once again. Fact is, I'd have been better off never pulling that rubber knife. Remember that. Don't pull a rubber knife on your horse. Till next time.